Good morning, everyone. We're here today at the Avenue B pump station in Gravesend, Brooklyn. This is a big treat because we don't often get to take a peek inside this amazing architectural gem. So come along with us today. I'm Alicia West, DEP's Director of Public Design Outreach, and I'm joined today by our wonderful Commissioner, Vincent Sapienza. Vinny, thank you so much for joining us today.
Alicia, it's a pleasure. Yeah, happy to do this.
I know this is one of your favorite one of our facilities, right?
It may be my favorite.
So we're really excited to get to look around. You were a big part of the upgrade of this station in 2015. Do you want to give us a little bit of history of what this building is, how it started, and how we've changed it over time?
Sure. Well, it's one of our 96 wastewater pumping stations that DEP operates and maintains, but it's one of the original ones. This, along with Avenue U, dates back to around 1915. And while its function is still pretty much the same as it was back then, pumping wastewater, its mission has changed a lot over that time, and I could get into a little bit more detail.
Please do. So in addition to the critical wastewater infrastructure that's housed within this facility, it's also a really unique structure. It was built, as you said, in 1915 in the Beaux-Arts style. The architect was Albert Martin. He was an in-house architect for the city, and he designed this absolutely stunning building, which you'll see is a brick structure with a lot of terracotta detailing. So from the columns here, and all of this up here above the door, that's all painted terracotta. And Beaux-Arts style is really defined by symmetry and a lot of decorative ornamentation. And it's a really special place.
And people ask, why would you make a sewage facility so ornate? But back at the beginning of the 20th century, it's the civic pride, I guess, at the time that they wanted to instill in the residents and show that if we all, work together, we could do great things.
Right, and exactly, and the same remains today. When we're putting a tremendous amount of effort and money into civic infrastructure, we want to be proud of it. And these are facilities that are in communities all over the city. As you said, we have 96 pump stations. So, some of them really do sparkle.
Let's head on inside and take a look. So while the function of this facility has been the same for the past 106 years, its mission has been changed significantly over the decades. So originally, the wastewater from the neighborhood was just being released into local waterways, and it was affecting areas like the beaches at Coney Island. And remember, back then, there was no air conditioning. People, to cool off, went into the waters at their beach. So there was a concern about getting the sewage off the beach and putting it somewhere else. And that was the function of this facility, basically taking wastewater from the neighborhood and conveying it into what was Coney Island Creek, where they thought that it could be diluted at the Narrows and have less impact on the beach. And that occurred from 1916 until 1951, when the Owl's Head wastewater treatment plant went online in Bay Ridge. And then the plant here, this facility, started pushing a lot of the wastewater from the neighborhood to Owl's Head for treatment. It wasn't until 2015 that this facility here was upgraded from 30 million gallons a day to 80 million gallons a day, where even more of the wastewater from the neighborhood made its way to Owl's Head for treatment.
And drastically improve the water quality in Coney Island Creek.
For sure.
Yeah, wonderful. So we have a lot of equipment down here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on?
Sure. So this is the equipment that was installed in 2015 when we upgraded the facility from 30 million gallons a day to 80 million gallons a day. So obviously what you see, the pipes and the valves and the pumps are much larger than they had been in the past. And that's why they can convey more wastewater to the Owl's Head plant and improve water quality in Coney Island Creek. So in addition to the much larger equipment you see down here, the technology at this facility has also increased exponentially from what it was. The old plant had to be operated manually by a team of DEP employees who were here essentially 7 days a week, 365 days around the clock to pump the sewage. Today, everything is automated. You can essentially run this facility on a smartphone. So we're going to go inside and show you how that works.
We're going to head on into the control room now. I just want to point out this beautiful copper door, which is original to the 1915 building. After you, Vinny.
Thank you. So the facility, back when it was originally built, had to be run manually. There was a staff of employees here who did that. When we did the upgrade in 2015, right on top of this control room, we actually found sets of what were called workman's time books. And it had the registered hours that each employee worked on each day during 1938, which was interesting. And also, we noticed that many employees worked all 365 days of 1938, and you wondered why. And as we did a little more research, we found that if you worked, you were paid $5.50 for the day. If you didn't work, you didn't get paid. It was during the Great Depression, so people probably needed the money, supporting a family, maybe extended family, and so people came to work all 365 days that year. So when we did the upgrade in 2015, the manual operation went to a remote operation, and here's the control board, and you can see this mimicking essentially what's happening in the plant. So red means on in the electrical code, so there are 4 pumps that are operating, 2 are on standby. And operators not only here at the facility when they are here doing some maintenance, but also off-site we can see what's going on, make any adjustments. If there are alarms that are raised, we can address those. But essentially the entire facility runs on a remote system.
Wow. So I just want to point out some of the amazing architectural details here. I showed you the door as we entered. We also have beautiful copper windows with these really fun poles, so they're operative still. We've got our beautiful tile and also this incredible metal ceiling. I love this little sticker that is still here. It's a vestige of when this facility also served as a weather station for the Weather Bureau of the U.S. Department of Commerce. So along with the major infrastructure upgrades, the building really needed a lot of work. The entire roof structure was compromised and needed to be replaced, but we were able to salvage a lot of the structural elements you see here in green, and we reinforced them so that they met seismic codes. It sort of speaks to the larger task of bringing a historic structure like this into use in the 21st century. And those efforts with historic preservation to both maintain what's really special about a building like this and the history of a building like this, but also make sure that it's going to function for how we need it to today. So these kind of compromises are something we can see in even like really quotidian details like this handrail here, right? So this is the original handrail here, which you can see is lovely with all of this beautiful detailing. This was too low to meet current fall requirements with building code, so we've added a secondary one to make sure that our operators are safe. So the entire interior of the facility is clad in green tile, and along the entire perimeter there's this decorative band that runs here, and we've got these arts and crafts style tiles. This one is a leaf, this is sort of like a garland or horseshoe type thing, and then back over here we have my favorite, which is a lantern. And now there's a lot of tile here, and when we did the upgrade in 2015, a lot of it was in kind of rough shape, right, Vinny?
It was. It had been here 100 years, and while many of the tiles held up well, others didn't, and had to be replaced. And so in different places in the building you'll find just replica tiles that we tried to do our best to mimic the older tiles. But even the older walls that weren't in such good shape, the staff here said how easy it was to maintain. They were able to even wipe it down to this day. So everyone liked the older style, but we tried to do the best we could to make it similar today.
It's really beautiful and really special. So we'll talk a little bit more about the historic preservation of the exterior of the building, but first, since we're inside, I thought we could pop downstairs and take a closer look at some of the majorly huge pipes that we have running through this facility. Let's go. In the equipment pit.
So Alicia, we are about 25 feet below street level, And just behind this wall is where the sewage from Gravesend collects, and there are pumps. There are 6 pumps attached to each of these pipes. The sewage from the neighborhood is pushed through these pipes into this large header above, which you can see. And that all makes its way then miles and miles to the Owl's Head plant, which is pretty incredible. So we not only renovated this facility in 2015, we also had to renovate the pipe that runs from here all the way to the Owl's Head plant, several miles. So a new force main, as it's called, was put underneath the median of the Belt Parkway. We ran it from here in Gravesend all the way to Bay Ridge where the Owl's Head plant is.
Wow, that's a really huge project. And you can sort of understand, because we've got these massive pipes, and with us standing here, you really get a sense of that scale, right? Pushing all of that sewage through to that larger intersection.
That's right, tens of millions of gallons every day. So the amount of wastewater changes during the day, and obviously when it rains, there's more wastewater. There's something called programmable logic controllers that are attached to each pump so that they know when they have to pump more or pump less. What you see behind you is part of the check valve counterweight. If it's slightly above horizontal, that means the pump is on and pumping some wastewater. So right now we see 4 of the pumps pumping some wastewater, not full out, otherwise it would be all the way up. But when it rains, you'll see all of those counterweights up, meaning we're pumping at full capacity, 80 million gallons a day.
So we really have sort of like a lot of extra horsepower. So, you know, on a regular day, we're not really using that much of it, but then when we really need it, it's there.
It's there when you need it, right? During the upgrade, we also installed a 10-ton capacity traveling bridge crane. And the reason it's important to have a crane of that capacity is when we need to remove the equipment that's down here in the pit to do maintenance, it's obviously very large, very heavy, and the crane certainly helps in getting this equipment out for service.
So we're outside again in front of the pump station back on Avenue V, right where we started. So we'll talk a little bit about the immense historic preservation of the exterior of this building, and I'll walk you through the different architectural details that are so special. So again, the station is designed in the Beaux-Arts style, and typical of that style, it has a pronounced symmetry and classical details such as these Doric columns. And these columns are made of terracotta tile. And you can see they have a very ornate capital. So above the windows, there's also a terracotta arch, the keystone, and then among that terracotta detailing, you can see sort of botanical motifs. And rising further up the facade of the building, you can see both the green and blue terracotta ornamentation, but also major cornice, which is also terracotta. You can see the dentils beneath with a sort of ochre-colored, alternating ochre-colored panels with sort of little orbs dripping down out of them. And when we went to restore the cornice, because it was in really rough shape, mostly due to water infiltration, one of the things that the architects had to do was really rethink how the drainage was going to work in the building. Too much water was getting caught up in there, and so they redesigned the system so that water would not get caught and those terracotta elements could last much longer. There are hundreds of pieces of terracotta on this structure, and we were able to salvage and preserve about 50% of them in situ. Now, to figure out which ones were good and which ones were the bad eggs, the team actually had to go through and sound each piece with a hammer. And I spoke to the architect who told me that the sound you got when you hit the panel was either, if it was in good shape, it really rang. If it was in bad shape, it either went thunk or crumbled in your hands. So it was quite a process to go through all of the terracotta on the building, but we really had a tremendous amount of success in salvaging it and restoring it to its original beauty.
Sounds good, right?
Sounds good. So from this perspective, you can see the roof of the building, which is a Spanish tile terracotta roof. It is not the original roof, it was a recreation, but it was designed to match the original, including the eyebrow windows, which let natural light into the building. Thanks so much for joining us today for this great tour of the Avenue B pump station. And thank you, Vinny, so much for showing us around inside, giving us a sense of how everything works and the history of this place.
Alicia, thank you for explaining how the restoration was done and all the great features of the building. Thanks also to all the DEP staff that maintain not only this building, but the entire wastewater system in the city. 1 billion gallons a day of sewage gets treated, and just a big shout out to everybody.
New York would not be New York without you.